Armored Christmas, everyone! It's your boy, Christmas Zephiel! And today we're going to have a little analysis, a discussion on the new Christmas units. So, going by chronological order, we start things off with the Dark Emperor Nino. Armored Nino, just like a real emperor. Although I did say that she's evil beyond belief, there are some things about her that makes me feel uneasy. So why don't we go and start things off with the positives. I'll list them off. 1. Armored. Being armored means that we can look at an expectant BST of around 170, 175. That kind of base stat seems to be the new standard these days. And it allows you to access to all kinds of broken armor skills being an armor unit, like Special Fighter, Bold Fighter, yada yada yada. And 2, she literally is Father Christmas. Every skill of hers can be fathered, and attack and speed form is actually pretty deadly. Problem is that you're not likely going to get 2 skills off of her because rally attack res only exist on loot and summer release, and sacrificing them for that is a little, yeah. Now, 3, I have reasons to believe that she's a fast attacker due to having that attack speed form. Bold Fighter could just be a backup skill to pierce through the likes of Worry Fighter, another layer of speed. It could also just be another case where she's just going to have a high dev res, in which case, 4, Tannin Bit. Tannin Bit could heal a decent bit on every hit. Now given that this toy can actually heal twice, if you hit twice, if Christmas Nino is tanky instead of speedy, then she has a really decent chance of self-sustain and can actually choke a point. If her Vengeful Fighter, she chokes a point. Now, tanky range units are better at doing this in my opinion, especially if they don't run close counter. So how this works is that they face a melee fighter, someone who doesn't like rip their face off, and from doing so, they can create a rather nasty traffic jam, allowing you to pick off units one by one instead of having them overwhelm you. That is an important tip in clearing like all these abyssal maps that you see like that. All you need to do is just make sure you have a nice tank that can choke a point, and everything will be just fine. 5. Ironically, if you somehow still have the blue egg from Spring Lucina, pretty rare by now, you can replace her Tannin Bit to emulate the God Bailiff technique, using just about any fighter skills. As long as she's hit and can counterattack, she'll be able to generate the 5 charges necessary to keep Miracle up indefinitely, becoming Demigod Nino. Now, problem with this is that you're probably vulnerable to guard and no follow-up techniques. I would still say though, Special Fighter is so broken, you probably will be okay. And a trade-off to those negatives is that you have a range attack. That makes it much more bearable. That said, I want to make sure that you know that Tannin Bit doesn't work. The weapon that she comes with heals during battle. The egg, the blue egg, and other mystic type boost kind of skills occurs after the battle. So that's how the whole God Bailiff technique works with Miracle. Now, I guess I could also say that, well, yeah, being a blue armor is kind of rare. I mean, she'll outpace both Lin and Ilyana by BST, though functionally they probably are about the same, one way or the other. Now for the negatives. Now obviously being armored means you have armored weakness. You have to spend a slot to clear it, or just put up with the fact that someone's gonna have to open up your can and shit down your neck. 2. Armored skills and armored BSTs are fun, but I think that with infantry nowadays picking up some really disgusting techniques themselves, like infantry breath and like times pulls, etc., and also having a really high BST these days, they might be a better investment in the future. I mean, just look at Close Call. What a disgusting skill. Luckily, range can't use it, but I won't be surprised with the trend going forward that something truly awful will be available for ranged infantry units in the future. Now, considering their lack of weaknesses as an infantry and their growing BST, just look at Norn. She has 168 BST as a ranged unit. You get her as a 4-star. That is so disgusting. 168. You know, I haven't even talked about her, but she's like the most disgusting unit in the universe. She completely blows Rebecca out of the water. Every single stats is just the most disgusting character. And you get her as a 4-star. So Rebecca is going to need a weapon refinery to define herself. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about today. So, anyway. 3, she doesn't have a pref weapon. Cannon Bit is a fun toy, but due to the way things are these days, I think that as a unit you'll need a unique weapon to really stand out from the crowd. Though, I mean, it's not to say that certain BST, like certain stats, could lead to an interesting build, such as, for example, this one. I mean, there are still some creativity to builds with regards to unique inheritables down the line. Sometimes a weapon just clicks, like how that blue egg example works for Nino. Anyway, next up, we'll talk about Winter Sothis. Now, I believe the greatest crime is that she's wearing shoes. All of a sudden, she wears shoes, but I suppose it's kind of cold. Now, thanks to her ridiculous hair, I always talk about her hair, Sothis has reached her ultimate final form, a Christmas tree. You know, I've always been a huge fan of that huge-ass hair of hers. Might be because I have a Raditz bias, but I just love looking at a large patch of grass like that. Now, comparing her to her regular form, she has a number of strengths. Now, let's compare. Sothis has a DC weapon. Winter Sothis has stats. Tons of stats. Both negates dragon weakness. Now, I think that Winter Sothis might be better in that regard because she has, like, 5 attack, and dev, and res, and, 8 speed, if you count the weapon giving you 3 speed to begin with. This kind of crap, and a very high BST, means that, she'll surpass even Homeless Tiki in terms of raw strength. I mean, Homeless Tiki kills dragons, but, I mean, look at all that stats. I mean, another thing about Sothis is that she can get the blessings of her choice. So that means that instead of being a giver, she's a receiver, and she's a horrible stat stick that'll surpass everyone in terms of numbers. On the other hand, having a mystic blessing that you give to other people is handy in Aether raids, and that new dumb defense mode, Neoner Strike, and any other new modes that they'll have in the future. But I don't know, having five, for example, 5 regular Sothis stacking res for you is pretty disgusting. Let's see, it's like you'll get 25 HP, and then you'll get 20 resistance. 25 HP, 20 resistance on top of whatever she has. It's pretty disgusting. So, receivers are pretty nasty, especially when they have BST to that point. I am expecting 180 out of her. I really am expecting 180. Can't be anything else. It's not likely. It's really disappointing that the game has devolved into something like that, but, well, Anyway, I hope that they have some way to make up for it. So, although she does make up for not having DC by having DC as her A skill, she does, well, I think, have the advantage of something equipping like Fortress Dev Res instead, and her stats would be so high that not even a soul weakness that she has, the armored weakness, would even matter at this point. I'm expecting like something like 50, 60. You know, you can really stack that thing high. Now, worst of all, is that she has Sirius, just like regular Sothis. So, on top of all that, she's going to be extremely tough to kill because she can self-sustain. If she gets on a defense platform, forget it. You're not going to get her out of it. It's ridiculous. Now, if I have like 2,000 or 3,000 orbs saved up, I might just go in all in and plus 10 this beast, because these are the kind of things that you want to plus 10 to fully take advantage of all the stats and whatnot. And combined with these Aether Raid stats that we talked about earlier, she looks to be rather impossible to kill. I think that at some point, Aether Raids might even just become like one of these modes where, oh, you have to capture the flag, or something, or at least increase the time limits or something like that, because units like these keep happening. It's a close call, and we all know how close call is like. Now, I mean, she's not entirely without weaknesses. Defense-piercing attacks like those from the Burger King will ace waste on her, while techniques such as the 6 Pass of Pain Plus will chip her down, enough that the stat bonus no longer really becomes a thing. But you know, I think it's about time that they release something that counters in-combat stats bonuses. Like, if say the Cleaner does something like that, on top of visible stats buffs, it'll really make someone think twice about stacking stats to such a disgusting degree. It'll probably give people more reasons to use daggers as well. Now, judging by Special Fighter and Sirius, Winter Sothis is guaranteed to be fast. Compared to Winter Fae, if you were to cover her weaker stats, she'll blow a Winter Fae right out of the water, and be the strongest member of your entire team. And it's hard, based on what we just talked about above. All in all, a solid choice, but highly unimaginative. It's not like we have never fought stat sticks monsters before. There are units that are specialized in doing so much damage, such as the evil Alm and his Dong armor version, or something like Giant Eyeball God Athena and her Soviet I-beams. Now just be aware that Sothis is a fast dual phase stick, so if you're gonna fight her, you gotta make sure you can outspeed her in some way, or find some way to ignore such speed. Now, the third unit is my pal Zephiel. When he was young, where instead of the Black Fangs are looking to kill his ass, they sent Nino and Jaffar to celebrate Christmas with him. Totally didn't expect that, and I'm sure everyone else is probably the same, thinking, oh, it's Xander or someone else. I like that though. Now, unfortunately, he suffers from a rather unfortunate disease. Male character syndrome, not named Ike or Ephraim, so he's pretty mediocre. Yeah, I mean, he gets the healing toy that Christmas Nino has in the form of a ringing bell. He has Ventral Fighter to go with it, and I guess he has DevRes Gap. I mean, I don't really like that technique, but it might be useful to buff someone like Winter Sothis remotely. But compared to something evil like the Hell Puppeteer Eureka that buffs 3 stats and has a much easier activation. By Hell Puppeteer, I mean like Armored Winter's Eureka. That is a much easier activation condition for the entire team, where you just need to have the highest attack. As long as you match the visible attack stats of each unit, you can buff the entire team. Zephiel, and whoever gets this skill, if you were to sacrifice him, this DevRes Gap, falls short in that support role. But don't feel too bad. Panic is a thing, and there's a considerable risk in of itself using this kind of technique and bonus doubler at the same time. Though I would say that sword that he has could be useful. Now, we have, as we discussed earlier, close call. Close call negates like 40%. If you slap it on like a tanky infantry, though, it has to be infantry. A tanky infantry sword user, you could turn yourself into a rather invincible fighter that could last for a very long time. So Zephiel is a decent fodder in that regard. I might just do that for him. I'm looking to find a good sword unit that could pay off with this. The problem with using close call is that, well, E-slot is kind of forfeit. So I'm still researching that, and I'll probably end up making a video about that at some point, discussing about close call. So we'll talk about that later. Anyway, so finally, we have Marth, and whom I thought was Al-Qaeda at first, but it turns out that it was just his sister. And I know people have been talking about this daring fighter nonsense that he has, but I think that it's a rather exclusive technique meant for him and other rare, fast armor to enjoy. But the payoff of daring fighter, I think, isn't all that great. Now, what daring fighter is to me is an old technique that we've all already known about. Alfonso Despacito! Equipping the likes of Desperation and Brash Assault Seal. 1. You can negate speed checks. 2. For faster units such as the Dark Emperor Nino, you can use that to negate things that blocks follow-up attacks like Worry Fighter, and then use your natural speed to double someone. Now, problem with this is that, and Daring Fighter in general, is that you gotta get hit for it to happen. While the payoff can be great, since you get Desperation, I really hate these types of skills. I mean, you have to go through hoops. You have to go through some hoops, like reciprocal aid, or a round of combat first, before you can do that. And you know what? There are units nowadays that are so tough that 2 hits might not be enough to take them out. Maybe 3, or even 4. In which case, then, Desperation doesn't even matter at all. In fact, it's a good way to get yourself killed. Still, the weapon that he comes with, the Tangrisnir, with its cooldown reductions that he gets and bonus stats, is a great weapon to run with this skill. Even if Daring Fighter, as we said, is a bit dubious, since you could just run Bold Fighter and make something else with an extra layer of follow-up. I mean, there is a bow for Desperation too, you know. It's kind of rare, but it's there. This fishy bow that Summer Takumi has will allow you to replicate such a technique with Bold Fighter. Anyway, so the dude has like 170 something BST, 173, 174, something like that. So he's good in that department. His dual skills is what makes him unique in that he can provide even more stats and bonus doublers for himself, which could turn the tides of certain fights if you're in a pinch. Now, I still kind of think that the stupid 20 damage skill from Hector Lilina to be far more deadly. This skill could turn an entire fight around, provided that you didn't need a panic that turn anyway. So all in all, I think that Marth is as good as a general fighter, but I think he needed something that really makes him stand out. Providing stat boosts and using Desperation aren't exactly new moves. And, well, you got something like Legendary Alm, it's just kind of hard to compare. Yeah. But hey, at the very least, he's colorless. So that said, let's talk about free units. Today, we get a free unit in the form of Christmas Jaffar. I feel very bad for him, because Christmas Cecilia is already a thing, and he instead has a color. He's a green dagger. And he's going to have that +5 healing dagger nonsense, as Nino and Zephiel for his dagger. Now, I thought that he might give us an opportunity of using a free useful fighter skill or something like that, and we get it for free, but turns out that he gets Dev Res Bond instead, and gold armor. Well, Dev Res Bond is good for my tanky healers, and gold armor is kind of rare. Dev Res Bond is kind of rare as well. I remember that gold armor was like a Hector exclusive for a while, so it could be useful in like an armored formation that already had tons of defenses. And then you can use Dev Res Bond for more defenses. Oh boy. But yeah, I mean, as fodder, he's pretty good. I mean, stat-wise, I'm pretty sure he'll probably have more than Cecilia, but that damn color is what's going to hold him back. What's worse is that Cecilia has cause to eat him up if they were to run that noontime build for Aether Raids. Use that stupid dagger at noontime to heal up more, that way they can tank even better. But hey, you know, don't let me stop you from merging him and building him. I'm pretty sure he'll still be useful with all that bloated BST of today. Unlike, say, way back in Book 1, when he gets stuck with that absurd 26 strength. So, alright. We've pretty much covered all the units, but I'll end today with an additional discussion on Peony. Since I kind of had sleeping sickness when that dumb banner came out, it's kind of sad too, because that banner is stupid. It's merely called Peony and more. Instead of anything related to Thracia 776, the rest of the characters are just kind of and more. I suppose that is kind of how I feel. I mean, but at the very least, make it fair and call it Peony and close call holes. So, Peony. This one has a potential to introduce a new trend of power creep coming forward. How so, you say? Well, her stats are nothing to write home about, and she doesn't have that +1 movement where Azura can boast this thing where you could move like an extra move. Oh man, dude, so tough, so scary. But Peony does have a new way of providing buffs across the field in the cardinal direction. And I mean, her dances allow you to have ground orders. It's kind of scary. Now, providing cardinal direction stats, in my opinion, is really disgusting. In my opinion, there's nothing more powerful than buffs that can be used map-wide like that. Furthermore, in-combat buffs like this is really scary. This type of flexibility not only allows you to safely provide buffs to your allies, but also makes it so that you can stack them easier too. You can make room for characters like Lucina to bolster your character strength some more to new heights. You can just make a totem pole from like a map away, and most importantly, it can screw your opponent up because all of a sudden, you know, your Peony moves somewhere and your units have to deal with someone who suddenly have 3 more attack and speed just because Peony is like suddenly moved over there or something like that. I mean, I've said this before, but in-combat buffs are really strong, and there's nothing that can stop them currently. And the only reason why they're balanced beforehand is that, oh, you have to keep a certain distance to another unit. Now, yeah, it really wouldn't be It wouldn't be surprising to me if, like, say, Book 5 have, like, something that gives stats around 3 columns. Like how, you know, we have like spur stats skills before, and then we have drive stats, and then we have this. We could look into getting something like that. It provides a little less stats, but gives stats through 3 columns. Now that's kind of scary. That's like half the map. But anyway, so that's how it is. That's what I think might happen in the future, and I don't quite like it. Because it's really disgusting, and 3 attack and speed could make the difference in a fight. Anyway, to make things even more complicated, the evil Peony has a speed blessing, a 4 speed. So she essentially provides 3 attack and 7 speed. 6 to 10 with a dance buff, so I mean, she's a horrible monster, okay? Now, as I said before, she has a dance that provides ground order and 3 to all stats, a cardinal direction. Now, the stats itself can be a liability due to being a visible stats, and being visible stats means you're panicked. There's an increased vulnerability to panic. You can't just like unequip your weapon or something to get rid of it. So it's a bit of a shame, but if it works properly, you can further control the battlefield. I mean, I guess you could also just equip the dance, just regular dance or something like that, but I don't know. Losing the ground order is kind of... Then you're just kind of regular dancer. But I guess you could just do that. That might be better if you really worry about panic. But otherwise, the ground order... Most important thing about this dance is that it provides ground order, okay? In a cardinal direction where you can just do that, all of a sudden, hey, it's not like it's direct, like 1 extra movement, but it's scary as hell because you have a potential for mayhem from all the way across the map. If your units are congregated together or within range, then you can even form a formation where a unit could get hit up to 6 times in a row on defense. If, you know, and a defense unit keeps, if the attack units keeps killing the units as spawns from the stupid dance. You can get hit 6 times in a row. It's really disgusting. Now, this type of surprise attacks are what I value greatly in a unit. Don't underestimate her. There's nothing more terrifying in this game than an attack that comes out of literally nowhere. Currently, Peony is one of the best units in doing so, and with these incredible stat boosts to boast. Compared to Ia, this one's a complete keeper. Not to mention she has literally nothing worth foddering. Ooh, 4 to 5 res. Oh, such a great skill. Ooh, she'd best toss that and get a more useful skill, like guidance or tactic skills or something. Well, and with that, our magical journey must come to an end. I haven't properly performed an analysis in a while, so they're kind of time consuming, and I hope for your continued support. Like, subscribe, yada yada yada. Alright, I thank you all for watching. Till next time.